I think it's fair to say that everyone has attempted travel photography at least once. Many people buy a dedicated camera before they go on a big trip, or simply want to take some nice images with their phone to share on Instagram or with friends. But let's be honest, most travel photos end up being nothing more than holiday snapshots. Images that might be fun in the moment but quickly fade from memory once you're back home. So in this video I'm going to share with you 3 key tips that will instantly improve your travel photos. These tips will help you come back with more meaningful images that tell a story, create lasting memories, or even kickstart a portfolio in travel photography. Probably the most important point when it comes to travel photography is to think in sets. Most people just wander around and point the camera at everything that grabs their attention, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you will end up with a bunch of random images that don't do a great job of representing the essence of the place you visited. Instead, I always focus on creating sets of photos. 3 specific types of images that together form a cohesive story about the location. Not only will that result in a more well-rounded body of work, but anyone looking at the photos will also get a better understanding what it feels like visiting this place. So every set needs a few establishing shots. These are the iconic viewpoints, landmarks, or easily recognizable features that define the place. They set the scene and let people know where you are. You don't need many of these, but they're essential for anchoring your set. So I came up here to this viewpoint because from up here you get a perfect view of the city, the harbor area, and the volcano. And this is a perfect opportunity to take one of the establishing shots that set the stage for the rest of the images in the set. Next are the shots from within the space. These make up the bulk of your photos. They showcase the life, culture, and character of the destination. Capture people, architecture, transportation, shops, and anything that feels typical or unique to the location. Here you can include pretty much anything. Just make sure to include a good mix of subjects and perspectives. So this is a nice scene to add to the everyday shots from within the space. It's probably not the most interesting photo in the world, but it just adds that little bit of character and emotion to the whole set. And finally, it's time to focus on the details. These are the little things that go unnoticed but tell a big part of the story. Look for close-ups of local food, quirky traditions, or unique interactions. These small details often capture the heart of a place. Here we have a good example of what a detailed shot could look like. I really like the texture and the color of this net, and it just gives you a good idea of what's important to the people here and what their day might look like. And this really adds a lot of depth to your whole photo set. And it's also worth noting that not every photo in your set needs to stand out on its own. Sometimes a shot that might seem ordinary by itself can add depth and context when it's part of a larger collection. So by all means, take photos of whatever interests you, but always keep the structure in mind. After all, a well-curated set of images will have a far greater impact than just a random bunch of photos. If you watched any video on travel photography before, you probably have been given the advice to only shoot in golden hour, but I recommend to ignore that. And of course, golden hour can be nice for a few shots, and I especially like to go out early when there are less people around. But for a good set, I think it's essential to include different times of day. Also, shooting in harsh sunlight can actually have its own merits. With regular sunlight, colors will appear much more natural, and the hard contrast can make for really interesting compositions and photo opportunities. But of course, shooting during the day can be challenging at first, so let me briefly walk you through the different forms of light and how to use them. First, there is flat or front lighting, which both have a similar effect. This is when the sun is behind you and therefore eliminating most shadows from the scene. scene. I often avoid shooting in those conditions since it renders everything pretty flat and two-dimensional. But it also emphasizes colors, so it can work well with vibrant scenes or portraits where you want even lighting on the face.
Here I found a scene that works quite well with flat or front lighting. Because there are already a lot of details in the scene, adding too many shadows would make the scene feel cluttered. And since the sun is in my back at the moment and it's also quite overcast, we get nice even illumination across the scene, and the sun is also enhancing all the colors.
Next, there is side lighting with the sun coming at about a 90-degree angle. This is probably my favorite light to shoot with, since it creates a nice balance of creating some shadows and textures that add depth to your images, but also preserves natural colors.
This is actually a really nice example for side lighting. As you can see, the sun is coming from over here, which is not exactly 90 degrees, but we still get some really nice definition here on the rocks in the foreground while preserving all the color information. And the sun is really enhancing the mist that's in the air and puts a huge emphasis on the shape of the volcano in the distance.
And lastly, there is backlighting when the sun is in front of you. This usually makes for really interesting shots since it emphasizes shapes and creates dramatic silhouettes and shadows. However, it can also wash out color, resulting in a more monochromatic look. So don't just limit yourself to one time of the day. Embrace different types of light and use them to bring variety and depth to your photo set.
And this is just a good demonstration of how front lighting will affect your images. Because as you can see, we don't get much color in the scene, but the photo becomes much more about the texture of the wall and the storefront, and also the shape of the light and the silhouettes from the people walking by.
And my last tip is to simple travel light. And before you dismiss this as obvious advice, let me explain why this is so important. So when you ask people when they get their best ideas, the answers are usually something like in the shower, or on the bus, or on a quiet walk. And what all those scenarios have in common is that our mind isn't occupied by actively thinking about something. And it is a proven fact that creativity spikes when our brain has the freedom to drift off. And I think travel and street photography are both creatively very demanding genres in the sense that it's often not obvious what to photograph or where to point your camera. So when you're lugging around a heavy backpack with multiple bodies and lenses, your mind will focus more on your hurting shoulders or the next break. So from my experience, anything that impacts my physical well-being greatly reduces my ability to be creative or spot potential compositions. That's the reason why I think packing as light as possible is crucial for getting more photos on your travels. Plus, it will make your overall experience more enjoyable, which is a nice bonus. And I know it's scary to leave most of your gear at home and don't have a lens for every situation that you might come across. I really struggled with that myself, but I traveled to many places this year with just 3 primes and never had the feeling I was missing out on something. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but more gear usually results in less keepers. So those are my 3 tips for better travel photography. Think in sets, embrace different types of light, and pack light. Try them on your next trip and I'd love to hear how it goes. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.